Hi, ladies.
Hey,
How is everybody doing?
good. How are you?
Good, good. Am I really, do I look really dark? I do, right? I need like a light.
It looks a little dark, yeah.
Open up your windows so I can get some light in here from your side.
That's the one with the lessons. Like 10, 15.
Hi, Renata. How are you doing?
Good. Hello. Good to see everybody.
I know.
How are things going?
They're going.
I bet. It's a different new normal, right?
Yes, just gotta adapt.
Yes. Yeah.
Got to adapt.
Wow. I'm glad I was able to join. My Fridays, we have meetings on Fridays at this time and not this week. So
I know. Where are you? There you go. So it should be exciting. We should be getting some more people in. We'll wait a few more minutes. Anybody have anything they want to share? Hey, Melissa.
Hello, how are you guys?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
I love your background.
Laguna Beach.
Oh, that's awesome.
Sweet.
My happy place.
Being on a beach would be a happy place for me, especially right now.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, has anybody had like lots of downtime? Just curious.
Some. It's different, a little bit, but it's just different busy, I would say. We're trying to be out there for our customers to kind of provide more support, so it's just all of a sudden, in March and April, you just have to kind of figure out what that is and what your customers, what your contractors need. So we've been staying really busy from that perspective, kind of be more on the support and consultant side versus trying to sell right now. So we've been providing some free trainings and stuff like that to our existing customers and just holding their hand. So it's kind of been just checking in and being busy that way.
I can see that. It's crazy.
Yeah. How about you?
It's like I have had less time. Before I had more me time and now I have no time. None. You know, I went to hide in my room for 2 hours and told everybody to not come in and not talk to me. So I could watch a Netflix show that I had started weeks ago and I hadn't been able to go back to it. So
Anybody doing homeschooling?
Oh, yeah.
oh yeah.
How is that going?
Oh.
It's wonderful. You know, when the teachers go back, they need to ask for whatever they want. So
I agree.
I'm ready to give it to them.
Yes.
I don't know how my students or my kids got A's. I'd fail all of them right now.
Oh, it's tough. It's an adjustment with the homeschooling for sure.
We're gonna give it. We're gonna start at 10:05. Give it 5 more minutes to get it started up. How's everybody's family?
We good here? So where is everybody at? Located?
So I'm in Houston.
Okay.
I'm in McAllen.
Michigan.
Down
Michigan.
Toronto.
Okay.
Austin.
Oh, awesome. I'm in Kansas City.
Kansas.
So this is
Yeah.
Denise, but Texas is in the house for sure. Hi, ladies.
Whoop, whoop.
Hey, Denise.
We have an entire week of 90 to 100 degree temps next week. And I have been crazy busy supporting contractors who are getting stocked with supplies to serve these people. So it's been good. Praise God.
Wow.
Um,
According to the chat, we've got 2 from New Hampshire, Michigan, Sacramento.
Utah. Yeah.
I'm gonna give it 1 more minute and then we'll go ahead and get started. We have Miss Thelma Temez doing a presentation for us today on diversity and inclusion. She's had her own company several years. She's done diversity and training for as a team leader, over 1,000 employees at T-Mobile. And she started her own business and has been doing leadership training through diversity and inclusion and generational training for several years already. And she's been teaching at some school districts and to some nonprofit organizations, helping them lead their teams. So I'm super excited to have her present today and give us some different options. And, you know, she's very tech savvy and she does lots of fun things. And I learn a lot from her when it comes to leading my team. A lot of new things to play with. And so I'm super excited to have her present today. Thelma, whenever you're ready, if you want to go ahead and get started with the presentation, I'll let you share your screen and you can go from there.
Hello, ladies. Good morning, and thank you so much for having me today. Yes, like Sarah did mention, I have been supporting T-Mobile for multiple years. I've been in the telemarketing organization for over 12 years. I started with them from frontline, started moving up, and then was exposed to diversity and inclusion for more than 6 years ago. With that and with the opportunity of being able to help T-Mobile on our mission customer experience side, creating culture and innovation and making sure that our employees are invested and that they're wanting to come to work, I launched my business, which is Encantada Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion, which just brings us focus and education with any type of inclusion, such as either multi-generation, multicultural, women leadership, veterans, pride, anything that really provides any type of education on just making sure that we're being inclusive that our environment is fun, that our employees are invested, because whenever we have a good culture, we know and we see the return of investment with our staff. We will be going through some activities. We will be presenting some discussions and some questions. We want for you to be extremely transparent and honest with yourself. There's really not such thing as a right or wrong answer. It's really just being aware and being aware of our bias and being aware of the differences and how inclusive are we being and what are we doing to really like become champions of diversity. That's the ultimate goal. Not only champions of diversity, mainly because there is diversity everywhere we go, but also being an inclusive champion. There's one thing, and one of my favorite quotes is that diversity is being invited to the dance and inclusion is being asked to dance. As we're going, if you have any questions, please feel free to have them in the chat. Sarah could go ahead and let me know, and we could definitely stop as we're going. We're gonna go ahead and start off, and I'm gonna start sharing my screen. I am tech savvy, but I'm still getting a hang of when it comes to sharing Zoom. So please be patient when we go from one screen to another. Let me go ahead and see. Let me know if you're able to see my screen.
Your screen is black. There.
Are we sharing my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So when we're going to go ahead and get started, we're going to go ahead and get started with a small, quick survey. The survey is really going to be just to get a little bit of an insight of where you're at when it comes to diversity, equality, and inclusion. As we mentioned, this is a safe zone. We're in the bubble, and this is something that it's really going to go based on where you're at right now, and don't feel like there's any right or wrong answer. The first question that we'll go ahead and get started with, and this is how the survey goes. Usually when we're in a presenting on a front face-to-face, we tend to do this first, but I'll go ahead and read them to you so you could follow along with me. So the first one is, and all of them are going to be the answer: rarely, sometimes, frequently, and always. My words and actions are constantly inclusive. So that's the question number one. I reflect on my views and ask myself if I made assumptions or if I have a blind spot. And we'll talk about blind spots in a little bit. It's rarely, sometimes, frequently, and always. I welcome different perspectives. I try to understand perspectives I disagree with. I invite others to work with me to create a more inclusive environment. I connect with others from a wide range of visible and invisible diversity and add them to my network. And we'll talk about invisible and invisible diversity. I'm curious about people, places, and experiences that are different or unfamiliar. I embrace and sometimes even adopt others' view when they say are better. I follow a personal code of inclusion as a leader. I make it safe for a team member to challenge norms and openly share different perspectives. I comment and encourage inclusive speech and behavior. I speak up when I see a non-inclusive behavior. I intentionally mentor coworkers who are different from me. I assign opportunities equally across all team members. I give all team members similar amount of air and face time. I seek input from people with diverse perspective and experiences when interviewing. So with these, all of our answers were between Rarely, sometimes, frequently, and always. How do we deal with the answers? Anybody want to share? Did anybody have an aha moment, or maybe something came up?
Thelma, can you repeat number 13 again? Because that was my aha moment.
13, I intentionally mentor coworkers who are different from me. Why was that your aha moment? Would you like to share?
I think that we tend to gravitate to people that think alike, like we do. And so sometimes it's making sure that we're also challenging ourselves by talking to others that maybe don't have the same viewpoint. And it's ours. It doesn't mean that our viewpoint's wrong, right? It just means that we're more well-rounding ourselves.
Yeah, and it's true. And thank you so much for sharing that. Sometimes we tend to incline to our coworkers that have similar perspectives, not only with diversity when it comes to physical diversity, but mental diversity, or someone that we know that it's going to give us the yes that we're looking for. Or we tend, even with the diversity, the amount of air and face time, when it comes to like our staff, that we tend to have our favorite employees, we tend to gravitate a little bit more towards them, and we tend to minimize the coaching opportunities that we go ahead and provide to them. So thank you so much, and that's really, we'll go ahead and continue. Now what we're going to go ahead and do, and mainly what we're going to, the topics and the table of contents that I would like to share, we'll talk a little bit about diversity. We'll go incline into bias, the different biases that could encounter. This is really important, especially if you're with your HR team. If you're hiring anyone, you really want to make sure that you're checking off your boxes, making sure that you're not falling into a bias fault. And it's sometimes, a lot of it is just like a blind spot that we have. But we'll also talk about inclusion, which is, this is the important part, that what are we doing to be inclusive? What are we working on? And what's our plan of action, especially right now with COVID-19? When we come back, we're going to come back to an organization and a frontline that's going to be scared, that they're going to be fearful. Like, what are we doing to make sure that we're creating a safe space for them to come back and to make sure that they're working at their full potential? Managing multiple generations right now in the virtual world that we're having, being able to alleviate our different generations from our millennials, not only with managing, but also with the type of coaching and the type of rewards that they're looking for. A baby boomer, for them, money might be important, but if you speak to a millennial, they want to have a gym at the work. So there's different motivations. So if you're trying to coach a millennial and you're trying to get a millennial invested and you're talking about money, if you ask a lot of the millennials, money probably won't be their priority. It's going to be time off, being able to work from home, being able to have yoga classes, being able to have access to maybe like a gym discount. So it's really identifying that, and then of course helping create a culture of inclusion. So we'll go ahead and get started with our circle of diversity. And this is an activity that you want to be able, and even with us, usually the way we do it when we're in front of each other, we would go through the questions. And if you feel that you want to be able to share, you could always, I know you could raise your hand, or you could share in the chat that that's something that you could relate with. But we're wanting to identify like the diversity within the group at the moment, because this is something that you could do with your employees. Because even though you come and that you're working in the same organization, you could come from different backgrounds, you could come from a different growth, education, and all of that. It's going to play a big impact when it comes to your performance, or how you react, or how you resolve problems. We'll go ahead and get started. And it's something that if you definitely, usually we would do this in a circle. And if you felt comfortable going in, you would go inside the circle and you would see who has the similarities and who do you share that with. These are all past experiences. So we'll go ahead and get started with, if your family owned their home, if either of your parents did not graduate from college, if you or anyone in your family is a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, if you did not go on vacation outside your home state prior to turning 18, if you grew up with people of color or working class, people who were maids, servants, or gardeners. If you study the history and culture of your ethnic ancestors in elementary and secondary schools. If you have ever written a letter to influence the outcome of a political decision. If you're a man. If your family had more than 50 books in the house when you were growing up. If your family told you you could be anything or do anything that you choose. If you were taken to art galleries, museums, or art plays by your parents. If you ever attended a private school or summer camp. If you grew up expecting that your family would pay for college. If you believe the police would help you in an emergency. If most of your friends are from the same race. If you ever been denied a job or pay less for work. If you were raised by someone other than your parents. If you ever felt an opportunity or a job was close to you, but you didn't know how to speak, dress, or act. Because you didn't know how to speak, dress, or act. If you ever felt judged or uncomfortable because of your size, height, or shape of your body. If as a child you were hungry or worried that there would not be enough food. If your family was ever forced to move because they could not afford to pay their bills. If you've ever been mistaken in your career due to your race or your sex. If you have any hidden disabilities, and if you ever lived somewhere that didn't feel safe. How did you feel as we were going through the statements? Anybody want to share?
Hi, it's Marika.
Go ahead, Marika.
Hi, I really I thought it was really interesting, like everything that you were just reading off. I feel like I grew up pretty privileged, and I feel like I could identify with a lot of the points that you were making. So I thought that was really interesting that I had this privileged childhood, but I also feel like I can identify with so many hardships.
Thank you so much for sharing. Another way to do this activity, and if it's something that you would always want to do with your staff, and to be able to be aware of your privilege, is instead of having to do a circle, and the way that I did it my first time, I was in Seattle and we were in a camp in Islandwood. So what we did, we were lined up. So they were reading the statements. So based on your statement, you would either move forward or you would move back. So at the end of the statements, you get to see the differences of the privilege, where some of us will be further up and some of us will be a little bit more back. So this is another way that you could always present the exercise, and really to get a little bit of an awareness of, okay, employee A, their background and where they're at and their hardships and what they've experienced, this is where they're at compared to employee B. It's just a really a neat activity, and it provides those bonding moments, and it gives you a little bit of an aha moment of how people will react, or it gives you the opportunity to really how you could tailor the coachings and how you could get motivated, or what's really going to be impactful and what's going to be important to the employee. What is diversity?
In the chat, they're asking if you could please get a copy of those questions.
Yes,
so that
I could go ahead and send you the activity, Sarah, and you could go ahead and share that. And I would also go ahead and share my email. If anybody still wants to follow up and has any questions, I'll be more than happy to go ahead and touch base with you on that.
And before you go on, I just want to read two more comments, or a couple of comments. They said, "Me too, please, very eye-opening. Definitely makes me think if I pay attention to diversity." And then Leslie said, "Agreed, even the question about how many books were in my house growing up, small things that you don't even think about."
Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, and that's what's important. One of the things is that with diversity, inclusion, and equality, it's something that you want to be very, very, don't be hard on yourself, because we're all growing. And the important thing is that, for example, if you have a bias, or if you have a blind spot, for you to not be harmful, for you not to be cutting off opportunities to somebody else, but for you to have self-awareness, and you're slowly going to be growing and slowly going to be more aware. And as long as you're working on improving and making sure that you're being inclusive, that's going to be the growth that's going to support you and your team. But we'll go. Thank you so much for sharing. And Sarah, if there's anything that comes up, please let me know. That way we could start. What is diversity? Definition: the state of being diverse and variety. What is diversity? When a group is made of people who are different from one another in both visible and invisible ways. The benefits is research finds that when a well-managed, diverse, and inclusive workplace, benefits including increase, such as innovation, creativity, engagement, retention. I could give a perfect example when it came to our customer experience center at Mission with our 1,000 employees. When we started investing in our diversity increased. We increased our network participation to over an 85%. Not only did our Ready to Rocket surveys improve dramatically, we were able to get the second best place to work at in Texas, which had been the highest. Our customer satisfaction was improved, and our retention level, our retention was like, we're below 8%. So we were retaining 93% of our employees annually, mainly because of how inclusive and the culture that they felt. Not only that, there's financial performance and excellent corporate sustainability. When it comes to diversity, does anybody want to share what they think as a visible and invisible characteristic? And I'm gonna go ahead and add an activity. That way you could let me know if you feel. We'll go ahead and go through these examples, and then the characteristics activity, which is a worksheet. So just if you could go ahead and we'll go over it, and then you could let me know if you feel that if it's a visible or an invisible characteristic, because there's two different types of diversity. Age, do you think it's a visible or an invisible characteristic? Personal belief systems. Values. Race. Gender. Skin color. Income. Learning disabilities. Leadership styles. Mental health, sexual preference. And in our overall diversity as a person, as a human, do you think, what is the percentage that you feel would be a visible, and what percentage do you think it's invisible? If anybody wants to share.
Maybe 55% invisible and 45% invisible. 55% invisible and 45% visible. I'll get it right eventually.
Anyone else?
This is Renata. I think I got more invisible. I would say more like over 60% for me was invisible.
Okay, so 60-40, that's how we feel?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was thinking 70-30.
Me
Okay, 70-30, do we think the 70 is the invisible or the visible?
invisible.
Okay, the 70-30.
I also had 70-30 for invisible being the lead on that.
I would think 90-10.
Actually, it's 80-20, where 20% is visible aspects such as language, gender diversity, age, race, skin color. The invisible diversity, which is that's where the majority comes, and it comes a little bit of, it usually always shocks everyone because we tend to focus a lot when it comes to just what we're able to see. but the invisible diversity is our personal beliefs, our skills, our values, our learning disabilities, our leadership styles. This is a little bit of an iceberg of how diversity, and if anybody, you see where the race, gender, age is really just very high level, the 20%, and the rest of it is physical ability, religion, nationality, skills, education, background. And the way that you could really like separate, it's really are you able to identify what my social class, or maybe more what my religion would be, just by looking at me. And that's how you could differentiate whether it's an invisible or if it's a visible characteristics. Will you be able to identify what a person's beliefs are just by looking at them, without really getting to know, without getting to interacting with them? Or are we just making assumptions? Are we just automatically, we create characters for someone, or assumptions that, hey, this person must be an introvert, or this person might be an extrovert? How are we really like identifying? Are we really getting to know our staff, our customers, our employees? Because the way that they're gonna perform and the way that they're gonna get invested is if they feel that connection, if they have that relationship building. Does anybody wanna share? Was this a little bit of an aha moment, or was it expected?
I think everybody's excited to see what else you're going to show us.
Okay, we'll go ahead and continue. Now we're going to do an unconscious bias exercise of the Trusted 10. And this is actually an exercise that was made by Scott Harden, that he did this activity. We'll go ahead and touch base. The way that we're going to do it, and this is again, it's just going to be a sheet of paper that you're filling out. I want you to write down the 10 trusted people in your organization, in your close-knit. There's 3 levels. The level 1 is usually anybody that's maybe like in your neighbors, your cousins, someone that you probably interact every quarter or whenever you run into them. Your level 2 is your people that you relate to them, you connect with them, but they're still not within the very close knit of circles. And this could also go back to your employees and staff. For example, you have your level 1 employees, the ones that you probably coach just because you need to, or you have your managers interact with them, that you don't provide them that airtime, that free time. I want you to write those trusted 10 people that you have. And this is going to give us an opportunity, and there's no right or wrong answer, but what we're trying to identify is really how diverse is your trusted 10, or what is it that if you have any common denominator within them, if you're inclining towards the confident and something that's comfortable. Let me know once you have your 10 trusted people.
And do you mean 10 for each level, or just
No.
total?
Just in total. Your 10 trusted people that you have in your life. And we could go based on professional, or with someone that you sit at a board, someone like your 10 most trusted people that you have. That if you want to work a job done, or if you're going to make a recommendation, they're in this 10.
I'm done.
Awesome. So now what we're gonna, I hope we'll go ahead, and as we're going, I want you to label their gender. Maybe you could just next to their name, just add whether they're female or male. After you go through gender, I'll go ahead and share the worksheet. It's write down their race or their ethnicity. This is how it would go. From race, ethnicity, their age.
Can we slow down just for a little bit?
Yes.
I have 5 guys and 5 females.
How are you doing with race and ethnicity, Sarah?
I have 3 white people, an Indian, and 4 Hispanics.
Okay. Now we go through age. And you could do, you don't have to know their exact age, but it could be like 20 to 25, 25 to 30, 30 to 35. And if you already did the age, you could see on the screen what the next one would be, which would be sexual orientation. Then education. If they have any disability, if it's a hidden or a visible or an invisible disability, if you're aware. Whether they're the marital status, whether they're single, divorced, married.
Most of mine are married.
You're not hiring single people.
I have 1 single person, you. I'm trying to get you married.
To add to your diversity box. So now that you go, and you could definitely continue, we'll start if anybody wants to share. But as you're going through your trusted 10, how diverse are you with the people that you're gonna provide the nice projects whenever an opportunity comes around? How is your trusted 10?
There were some comments in the chat. Melissa says she wants a copy of this as well. The questions, and then the unbiased exercise if she can get it. And then Missy says, the exercise is very eye-opening. I did a similar exercise a few years ago. We closed our eyes and someone read facts about their life and some choices. The purpose was to tell what you expect the person to look like when you open your eyes. Did it match up? Then you could tell how many assumptions you make before even seeing a person.
Yeah, and that's super, and thank you so much for sharing that, because in a little bit we're gonna watch a video of our blind spots, and that we all tend to have them, and it's very, very normal. And the great thing about this is, as long as we're really like making sure that we're learning, that we're being open to different races, different age generations, different education backgrounds, this is where we want to go ahead and make sure. Let me know if we were able to continue with this. Let me go ahead and get this. So moving on to bias, and like we mentioned, it's something it's very common. And Sarah, let me know if you're able to hear, please.
We see it coming up.
Okay. Let me make sure there's. Oh.
Are you seriously considering her as a candidate?
Just don't trust
She's a woman.
She's a woman.
This is a man's
She's
job.
clearly not educated.
Really? Does she even speak English?
That's not me. I'm not like that. I'm not like that. You call
call it an honest mistake. Science calls it a blind spot. Our unconscious mind is a mysterious and powerful thing. It makes 90% of our decisions without us even knowing it. Our brains are overloaded with 11 million pieces of information every second. Yet we can only process about 40 of them. So we're wired to make cognitive shortcuts, using past experiences to make assumptions. And you know what happens when we assume? Our unconscious mind can put us on autopilot, determining where we sit, who we eat lunch with, who we turn to for advice, and who we choose to offer a helping hand. Living our lives with blind spots can put us in a tunnel. Same point of view, same decisions, same outcomes. We can find ourselves trapped in the land of snap judgments and misconceptions. We've all been on both the giving and receiving end of blind spots. Think about it. Who's talented? Who's able? Who can I trust? Who belongs? We've all been there. Blind spots are part of the human condition. Our choices have consequences for us and the people we interact with. By accepting that blind spots exist, we can stop. Imagine what possibilities exist if we could do it all over again. Different perspectives, inclusive relationships, diverse networks, better outcomes, seeing people for who they really are. People like you with unlimited potential. We all have blind spots. Once you accept that you have them, you can choose to do something about it. It's time to check your blind spots and focus on what's possible.
That was really good.
What did y'all think? Was it a little bit of an eye-opener? Let's stop now.
That was really cool.
It was a really good video. I think, this is something that I personally constantly try to work on, to kind of eliminate assumptions, and have proven multiple times that people surprise you. The first kind of impression, what you assume about the person, and then later after you get to know. So it was a great video.
Thank you. And thank you so much for sharing. And it's something that we all have them. And I would like to share even like similar little things. For example, one of my experiences, the latest one was when I was going to go get a massage before we went through this COVID-19 shutdown and social distancing and quarantine. And this is the spa belongs to a really good friend, and I usually go there and they're like, you need to try this new person, she's really good, and just give her a chance. I know your lady's no longer here. And I'm like, okay, well, let me go. Like, mind you, we're always busy, we're always running around, and I'm like, okay, I'll go ahead and give her a chance. So I'm getting ready to get a massage, and a tiny little girl comes in, like maybe double her size. She comes in, she's short, she's small, and I want a deep tissue massage. And my first thought, of course, is like, she's not gonna get through all my knots. Like, I just had that automatic mind that my mindset automatically went to prejudging. It wasn't intentional, it wasn't harmful, but I was like, oh yeah, I don't wanna like have to spend an hour of my time getting a massage that I'm not gonna enjoy. So I was like, no, Thelma, you're supposed to be a diversity champion. You're supposed to be an inclusive champion. Give her a chance. Sure enough, to my rude awakening, she is awesome. And I was gonna miss out on a huge opportunity of getting a really good massage and walking out, or maybe if I would have caused some chaos or would have been upset or over would have reacted without giving her the opportunity of, hey, let me just let her, if she's being recommended, why not? Why am I automatically judging because I want a deep tissue massage that I feel that she doesn't have the strength to go through my back? I'm not sure if anybody has ever experienced something similar or would want to share.
I'll say an example. The company I work for now, I was a vendor partner for them before. And so I had met one of the employees that I work with now at an event, and I met her, and my first impression of her was like, I don't think we're going to be friends. I don't think I'm going to like her, right? And now I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna talk to her. I'm gonna get to know her. And now she's probably one of my she's my closest person at the company. But you know, sometimes it's so you never know what someone's going through when you meet them too, or what mindset they're in. And it's so easy just to jump in and assume they're this person. But really, you have to get to know them, and you have to, you know, you can't just go off of first impressions. But I totally did. I totally judged her, and I was like, nope, don't like her.
And I'm pretty sure that it works both ways. Just the way we do it, people make the assumptions of us as well. Sometimes that we get like, oh, when I first met you, I thought you were, and they'll start sharing with you whether they thought that you were a bitch, or that you were mean, or that you were going to be rude, or that you weren't able like to get feedback. And then you build a really good relationship after you pass the little hurdle of when I first met you, believes.
Yeah, we totally had that conversation, and now we joke about it all the time.
Now, bias, an inclination or preferences either for or against an individual, group, or interferes with impartial judgment. So this is going to be huge, especially like any type of biases whenever we're working on projects or whenever we're working on hiring. We want to make sure that we don't fall into these type of different biases that we have. The confirmation bias, usually when we look for evidence that supports our beliefs and ignore evidence that contradicts them. It can stop us from gathering additional information when the evidence gathered so far confirms views already told. So for example, in this case, imagine that a person holds a belief that a left-handed are more creative than right-handed. So those are beliefs biases that we have. Usually when we think, hey, anybody that, if you're left-handed, you're gonna be more creative than the right-handed. And you automatically, if you want someone creative, if you will go out there and hire a left-handed just because you feel that a left-handed person is more creative than a right-handed person. So those are confirmation bias. Prototyping bias. When we have a preconceived notion of how we think would be right for a particular role, top talent, board role, or stretch assignment. Any opportunity with high visibility, this assumption is often based on who we've seen succeed in this. Prototyping is how many have you heard about CEOs have to be taller than 6 feet? So that is just an example where mainly because statistics show that most CEOs, and yeah, statistics do show that most CEOs are taller than 6 feet. That doesn't mean that whenever you're as an enterprise, as a corporation, that whenever you're looking to hire a CEO, you're not going to put the requirements taller than 6 feet. So those are just an example that we want to make sure. And then similarity bias, when we're drawn towards people who reminds us of ourselves based on shared social identity, this limits our network. So these are the similarity bias, and it goes back to how are we doing with an unconscious trusted 10? Who are we really providing those high visibilities? Who are we really giving them the opportunity to connect with boards? Are we choosing someone that looks like us? Maybe someone that thinks like us? Maybe someone wanted to say something? I'm like, I don't know. Someone that thinks like that, someone that we know, like, okay, I'm going to connect this person. I'm going to provide them that connection of becoming part of a board, but because I know they're going to do the job like me. Or how many times have we been selective with the people that we, not intentionally, but whenever you leave your POC, do you always leave the person that you know already knows the job and you know that they'll do the role because you want it to be done? Or are you taking that extra time to develop someone that's interested on moving up, but it's going to require you time to train them for when you're gone? And we all do it because sometimes I lead a team, and I already know my go-to person. I already know the person that when I'm gone, they're going to be able to like provide me that recap, that execution. But I'm not really sometimes investing on developing others because I'm being selfish, because I'm like, well, this person already knows how to do the job. Why? Because I'm being a little bit of a bias, and I need to make sure that I intentionally have a plan that I'm going to give others opportunities and that I'm going to provide them with those trainings.
You've got a few comments here in the chat. They said, I get that a lot. I give a horrible first impression from Karen. Laura, Lynn, Connie, and Nicole all said they would not be able to be CEOs because they're 5'2" or 5 feet even, according to Nicole.
You could be CEO. Good thing that those are just prototyping biases. Awesome. So now, what is inclusion and what's important with championing diversity? Let me go ahead and share this video. Just let me locate it.
It's very fashionable these days to have equality and diversity as a strategic objective, a high-level agenda item on companies and in organisations. And I absolutely agree with that. In fact, I believe that the Chief Executive Officer should be the champion of diversity and put their beliefs into practice in the way that they conduct themselves. But very often what this means is that the Chief Executive has to exercise judgments, particularly perhaps in relation to recruitment of staff, that don't necessarily conform with the accepted ways of doing things with human resource departments. And the problem is, what do you do as a member of the panel, if you're the chief executive or if you're giving guidance to some of your senior staff? The answer for me is that on the whole, you do trust your gut instinct, and that if you feel that somebody is either not so good or is actually really good, and it isn't fitting in with the boxes that you've ticked, you try and find a way of giving that person a chance. You don't do it to fill a quota because you need to have more black senior managers, or you need to enable women middle managers to break through the glass ceiling. You do it because you are trying to see beyond the HR systems. You're trying genuinely to work to value differences, which means really putting yourself as the selection panel in the shoes of the person that you're interviewing and understanding what really motivates them and what's under their skin. And then you go with that judgment. I have had an example of when it's gone completely wrong, I have to say, for me though, which is in my desire in my previous job when I was running a college in Cambridge to promote black middle managers and to take in some black staff, because we had a lot of black students in the organisation, and I very much wanted to encourage staff from black and minority ethnic communities to apply. So we did all the right things in terms of advertising in the ethnic press and taking a larger number of people into interview than we might have done. And we appointed a black manager. It was absolutely terrific to get hold of this woman and put her in post, and then we didn't support her. Effectively, that was because I kind of thought my job had been done by, almost, I suppose it was almost having like a trophy. We have got a black senior middle manager now. And then the job's done. Well, it isn't, of course. Really what we had to do, and we did do it, but we learned the hard way. I learned the hard way, was I had to sit down with her when I realised that actually she had great potential, but she needed extra support. She came with actually quite a lot of psychological baggage from having previously been rejected in posts, and then suddenly she got a post, and she needed some one-to-one support, she needed coaching, she needed some leadership training, all of which we subsequently put in place, indeed some specialist training. But that I completely missed in my kind of desire to be the organisation's equality and diversity champion. So I learnt from that when I went into my last job, and I moved from running a college to running a big national programme of e-learning across the whole of the UK, and where I continued to be the diversity champion, but where I always worked with the HR professionals, both to find ways of avoiding just applying the standard procedures, HR procedures, and with outside help through working with specialist equality and diversity HR consultancies, through having annual audits of our equality and diversity policy in practice. We were genuinely able to not just help promote people or recruit people, but really give them the support that was needed once they're in the job.
So this video gives us and takes us to our next topic, which is the inclusion part. Now that we definitely went over like diversity and making sure that how diverse do we want our circle to be, or a trusted tent, what are we really doing to be inclusive, and how well are we doing when it comes to making sure that we not only provide a seat at the table for someone, but we're providing a voice for them. Do we really want to be extremely careful when it comes to, are we just doing it to check a box, or are we really doing it intentional, providing them the tools, making sure that, of course, we're being inclusive? And this is just not race. This is, hey, a female, male. If you are in an environment that it's mainly females, how inclusive are we being with our males? If it's mainly males, how inclusive are we being with females? I'm not sure if you've ever been in a meeting where sometimes, and I've been in meetings so many times where I've seen where male colleagues, when a female's talking, sometimes they'll talk over her and they'll completely shut her down. And when I see that, and I'm the type of person that if something happens to me, I'll be like, wait, give me 2 minutes. This is my point of view, and this is what I'm sharing. As soon as I'm done, I'll go ahead and let you. But how are we being champions that if we see someone speaking or that has a seat at a table and they're voicing, someone with higher privilege doesn't stop them and cuts them off, and now they want to share their point of view. And then we'll see the other person just sit down and will not share their ideas and will not share their beliefs or will not share their concerns of a problem that they might potentially see. Has anybody been in those kind of situations? Anybody want to share? Awesome. Well, inclusion, the definition and the action or state of including and being included within a group or structure. Diversity without inclusion is meaningless. Your objectives would always be to communicate, involve, and then recognize. You could do it by observing different generations at work, how to communicate and provide feedback, how you involve others and how you develop, and how you recognize employees for a job well done or motivate different. This is mainly towards the also generations. Right now, and not only with inclusion, but we'll also go into the generation differences. Just like there's generations, there's cultural differences. Anything with different disabilities and opportunities to being able to do that. The reason we'll focus with different generations mainly because I know right now we're going through a virtual world where we're wanting to make sure to use our resources and being able to make sure that we're being useful with all the different generations and how we're going to motivate them. We're going to go ahead and play how we're doing and how we assume are managing multiple generations. We're going to play a Kahoot game, which this is a really fun activity that if you're running a virtual team, how you could get them involved and how you build your culture. If we could go ahead and play, you could open Kahoot.it. Maybe you could put it in the chat from your browser. You just open your browser and you click Kahoot.it.
Just going through time, we do have 6 minutes left in the hour.
We'll go. This will be our last game, and then we'll go ahead and definitely wrap up for any questions. We have do we need to give anybody else time, or we're good to start?
We should probably get started.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Managing multiple generations. Let's see how we are aware with our generations. What generations from the 1900s to 1944? And 5 were right. We have Sarah leading. Generation X are from the years. What generation had the highest divorce rate? And this one would be our last question. The first generation of children with schedules. Did the questions give a little bit of an aha moment? We have a lot more, but I know that right now we're running short on time, and I really want to make sure that we finalize and leave some time for questions. Ultimately, with inclusions, it takes work, it takes intention, it takes skills, it recognizes engagement and ability to adapt and self-awareness. There's a lot more to go with, and if anybody ever needs any type of consultation, you could always reach out to me. My email, I'll share it with Sarah so she could send out. I'll also share the worksheets. This is a constant conversation that we could go ahead and create a whole year curriculum, anything from generations, disabilities, veterans. That's a whole different arena. I know there's a lot out there that we could go ahead and have a discussion, and the importance is to always be curious and to be willing to grow and to make sure that we're having an inclusive plan. Now, especially more than ever, that when we come back from the COVID-19 and that we go back to our working norms, it is going to be important that we make sure that we're being inclusive. Not sure if there's any questions, Sarah, or any comments before we wrap up.
Thank you so much. This was great.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So in general, I don't think I haven't seen diversity and inclusion as a priority for my company. It's something that's very important to me, but I don't necessarily see it being promoted in the ways that I think are important in a lot of the ways that you've reflected today. I'm also very young. I'm in an entry-level position, and I don't know how to affect change and show people that I think these things are a priority and it's something that we should be working towards as a company. So do you have any recommendations as to how I can communicate that as something that's important to myself and how I want to make that a priority for my team?
You definitely, and that's great that you want to go ahead and start with the organization. Most, and right now all organizations have a diversity program, but a lot of them are not as loud about it, or they don't have the resources to have that marketing campaign, or it's at a very high level. It's very where the CEOs or the C levels or the VP levels are at that have the most access to it. One of my recommendations is, and if you need help with any of this, I could always go ahead and help out, but start with being able to provide diversity maybe amongst your team. So if you have a team of 10 that you report to, start creating, maybe that could be your stretch assignment where you're bringing awareness. For example, for March, it's Women's History Month. You bring awareness for Women's History Month. February, it's Black History Month. You start providing or sharing resources or maybe trivias or games around Black History Month. During usually June and July, usually Pride months, where all across the states, there's New York Pride, there's California Pride, LA. You could bring awareness. April is Autism Awareness Month. So it's just really you can start by being a champion, and then usually your hub, like your main website for your company, usually has a diversity page where, and companies like to show this off. So I don't know if you've ever done any homework on it, or if you've ever considered looking into it. You might want to look into what kind of resources they're already sharing, or if they have any type of webinars. And then that way you could go ahead and share. A lot of managers are not very active when it comes to promoting diversity, since they're so engaged with operations. So that's something that we experience here at our mission side. But I was only doing diversity as a stretch assignment. So my director saw such a big impact that he removed me from my operation role for a year. And he said, I want you to just focus on diversity and make sure to just bring awareness to our center when it comes to diversity. Now, a lot of organizations don't have that opportunity of, hey, removing a salary employee that's an operation employee to just focus on diversity. So it took 8 months of me doing it as a stretch assignment and doing the homework and doing the extra legwork before I was able to do it as a full-time job. From there, that's where I saw the opportunities to work as a consultant for small businesses and boards or organizations that don't have the opportunity to have someone full-time, and giving them something tailored for them. If you have like anything that you could start off stretch, because if you talk to any of our managers right now, even at site, not all of, they're so focused on operations that's another thing that they need to worry about. So it does get challenging. And sometimes when there's webinars, they might not even share with the front line. Okay. But my email is thelmatames@hotmail.com. If you want, you could always share me like the company that you work with. I could help you do a little bit of homework. Usually they'll have something on their website as well of like their what they're doing for diversity.
Okay, thank you very much.
So I'll get the information and I'll share it out to everybody. I just want to remind everybody to please, we're still at this time looking at the conference. Please save the dates for the conference. They're on our website. We have canceled all the other events all the way to May, and keep looking out for that. And really want to thank everybody for their time today, and for being here. And you've gotten quite a lot of awesome presentations in the chat group. And so if anybody has anything else before we close. Colleen, you want to jump in and say anything? Well, thank you, ladies.
But this was fantastic. Even if it went over, it was a lot of content. There's some great notes in the chat.
I think she should do another one on generational leadership, but that would be another whole hour. But thank you guys so much. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me, ladies. Stay safe.
Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.